all of the stuff that comes through me is stuff that you can bring into yourself. You can turn it around in your mind. You can reflect on it. You can see how it connects to your experience and see how it fits into your world. And you may hear messages in the message that I'm delivering that may not be even messages that I was cognizant of or that I understand, simply because that is your relationship with your own guidance. Today, I was guided to talk about the mother. You can see there's kind of hard for me to get the camera to focus on it. This is Mother Mary. Mother energy was coming through very strongly in a number of decks, and I've got this little possum skull, which I'll be talking about later on as well. And all right, let's get started. So the first card that came through is the vision. I'm gonna center that right there. So you can see the vision. It's got like a tree in the back against a night sky, which talks about being able to see in the dark. I've been on a trip for a long time about how after the Enlightenment, there was such a focus on rationality that it is like when we turn on lights outside at night, we brighten the street, we brighten all of our environment that we inhabit every day. And when we do that without mindfulness about how much light we actually need, or context, timing, that sort of thing, we can create an environment where it is bright all the time. And it's actually bad for our eyes. It's bad for our circadian rhythms. It's bad for our ability to sleep. And it is bad for the animals around us, like the whole ecosystem. For example, these owls, their eyes are designed to work in the dark. And they're very, very good at doing what they do in the context in which they evolved to do it. But if you change the context by making it bright all the time, that disrupts the ecosystem, that disrupts kind of like the predator-prey cycles, it disrupts the life cycles of many insects. So dark is scary. Some people can think about darkness as scary, but darkness also, when we learn to see in the dark, then our eyes can become accustomed to the dark, and our pupils are able to dilate, and we're able to see things that we couldn't see before, maybe some things that we needed to look at. And so I'm thinking about that when I'm looking at this card. Also, I see as two owls, and in another deck that this creator made, the owl is associated with the suit of swords, which has to do with air, and it has to do with intellect. It has to do with rationality. Interesting, right? Okay, so I was just talking about the drawbacks of rationality, but this is about a rational predator that's able to see in the dark. You can see there's like a moon in the background of that mountain, right in the center of that circle, but you can barely see it because it's so bright in this card. And okay, then these two hands here, what I'm seeing is like kind of like well, this reminds me of the sacrum, and this reminds me of the heart, and it also looks like a mother, and it also looks like a child right here. And then also I see a forest right here, and that little red spot. I don't know if you can see that. That looks like a light in the darkness. Now, or the dark sky advocates, they say if you're going to use light at night, the best thing to do is to use something that resembles firelight, because that doesn't throw our eyes off as much. Okay, so I was like picking up on lots of themes of mother-child stuff, light and dark stuff. This I drew earlier, which is the Queen of Swords. And you can see the Queen of Swords is a master of intellect, and she's holding a butterfly, which shows that she can also be delicate. You can see that rays of light coming off of her sword in the background. Negatively aspected, the Queen of Swords can be an ice queen. And this actually reminds me of a vision that I had during a healing ceremony that had to do with my maternal line. And what I saw in that was a series of women that were like ice and sharp, and it felt like a stab wound, and I cried. Like, I cried and I cried and I cried. Actually, there's a lot of sadness coming through in the energy that I feel from the cards that I drew, because if you look at this is Thanatos, and that is like some hands caught in a spider web. Okay. And this card has to do with death energy, and the spider web makes me think about being caught in a web of causality. I don't necessarily use the word karma a lot because it can mean a lot of things, just like the ego. But to me, this feels like unprocessed stuff, right? It feels to me like stuff that gets passed down from generation to generation. Because yeah, I see like two hands and then there's one hand below it. It's like something's confused and cut off. Then there's almost like a little eye peering out of the center of that. So I'm thinking about Queen of Swords energy. So at best, a Queen of Swords uses her intellect to draw boundaries and to make decisions and to have clarity and to articulate what she's thinking and feeling. And in an integrated way, this could be a way of expressing power all the way up through the chakra system. So it would also include being connected to your heart space, right? You can, if you're an integrated person, you can have your heart connected to your power, connected to your ancestry, and connected to your mind, and it can all be part of one whole thing. But if there's like kind of like a knot of ice where there's like some unprocessed intergenerational trauma, could have a mother that is very cold and calculating, that is maybe narcissistic, or sees people as objects to be manipulated, sees manipulation as her only way of exercising power, could be contentious, embattled, cruel, could actually strike out to snuff out any sort of warmth that she perceives in her children, or could be threatened by warmth, right? Because that's not how she operates. And all of this could be like very unconscious as well. So she may see herself in a completely different way than other people experience her. She could express the way that she treats her family, her friends, her spouse, or her children as being loving even if it is very manipulative, even if it is very calculating or strategic or cold. And all of this is to protect herself because she has things that she has not been able to process or integrate or accept or understand or forgive. Maybe she was denied warmth as a child, or maybe she went through some very traumatic things after that, or maybe she has a very contentious relationship with the patriarchy itself, right? Like, feeling as though her feminine qualities are devalued or not welcome in this world, and that the only way to get ahead um, is to be manipulative, right? Okay, so what I was kind of seeing with this vision card is that when you're a child, you have this fantasy of the way that life is supposed to be. It is influenced by fairy tales, stories, movies, maybe even the idealistic way that your parents think that they're coming across that may differ from what they're actually doing. And so then there's this forest card, which the forest appears in all the fairy tales, almost all the fairy tales. The forest represents a journey. You go into the forest and you negotiate a series of tests and challenges, and it's not safe. It's possible to get lost in there. It's possible to get eaten by animals. It is possible to have all sorts of trials and tribulations occur, but also along the way in the forest, there's also kind of tests and helpers and enemies and friends who seem like enemies and enemies who seem like friends. And so the forest is kind of the testing ground for reality, right? Like, there's all the things that you think should be true, the way that you think that things should be, and then there's the way that things actually are. That's tested by the forest. But also, the other thing that I think about this vision card is what I was talking about earlier with being able to see in the dark. In the fairy tales, you are asked to look at things not just as they appear to you with your eyes, but also being able to see with your inner knowing. For example, there's like a fairy tale trope where somebody appears to be like an old hag or something like that. And then if you pass the test, you find out that she's really a beautiful woman. So I'm also thinking about that with the Queen of Swords, that also things are not always as they seem. So when you're a child and you have a mother like this, you may idealize her, you may worship her, you may think that she is expressing love, that is love to you because that's all you have, so you have to make it love. And then when you get older and you start to process that, you may switch and see her as the enemy, right? You may see her as the person that is the source of all your trauma and woe, and you may see her as singularly responsible for making you the messed up way that you are. But then I think there's like kind of a third beat to that story, or there can be, where if you are able to, there may be like many, many beats to this. Like, if you're able to like see into why she is the way that she is and all the intergenerational stuff that went into making her the way that she is, and then you can kind of understand. But then you may also have like another beat of the story where you have to be the Queen of Swords now, and you have to be able to prioritize your own life, your own happiness, your own boundaries, and you need to be able to not sympathize with her at the expense of yourself, right? Okay, so then the fault line, this is a new deck for me, so I had to look up what this was about. The fault line has to do with walking on eggshells. It's like the crack in the ice when you put weight on it. So it's the kind of the weakness that you can sense. If you put any weight on it, it's going to cause you to go down into the cold water where you could drown. And I actually like this card in the context of this reading because we were just talking about ice queens, right? We're talking about ice queens. We're talking about, okay, so the ice queen might be afraid of warmth because this ice is what is separating. This ice is useful, right? Like if you melt the ice, then it reveals this kind of like depth of emotion that could be very scary, right? You don't want to melt the ice that you're walking on, right? Let me see, like, what else I get about that fault line. Yeah, fault line can represent trauma. It can represent something that needs to be integrated. It can represent something that needs to be healed. It can also represent a divide between you and someone else. It can be a divide between you and your culture. And and the fault line might stand between you and death too, right? Oh man, I feel like a lot of grief coming through. Maybe we invite my female ancestors to come through and help me with this. I also see these hands reaching through. Okay, so what I see in this card, I see the hands reaching through and wanting to repair. Oh, I feel sad when I say that. Yeah, the female lion that did not give nurture to their living daughters when they were alive feels sad about that now after death and want to repair. They want to, and also those that haven't learned yet are wanting to receive forgiveness in the backwards direction. So whatever it is that you've learned to evolve your line since your mothers were the way that they were, they receive that. Also, they want to know that they receive that and they're so proud of you. And me also, like, I feel like inviting, all right, so if you go back even farther, and you may not know, but you can reach out to the most recent healthy ancestor. And by healthy, what I mean is not disconnected from the land, right? Not disconnected from the lessons of the forest, not disconnected from, or or something about the fault line here too. Oh, look at this, like this also, if you look at the fault line, it looks like a tree. It also looks like blood vessels too. Look at that, it looks like blood vessels. So you've got like a family line, you've got all this stuff, one unbroken line between your ancient ancestors from the beginning of humanity all the way down to you. And whether you know them or not, you do have ancestors that were connected to the land, and they did have a healthy relationship with the earth and each other, and were able to give that love without manipulation, right? They didn't confuse love with manipulation. And so, yeah, if any of this is resonating with you or triggering you about mother stuff and ice queen stuff and being treated like an object when you were a child and being treated like you were there to serve your mother's needs and that you were not able to develop a sense of self because there wasn't any healthy mirroring, it was all about kind of serving the needs of a selfish mother. And what you can do is you can reach out to the last healthy ancestors that you had. And when you do that, that also connects them to any more recent ancestors that need to receive that nurturing, right? Because they may not feel, they may have like a little bit of an orphan wound. They may feel, and that was like a card that came out too. Okay, so I'm gonna pull. I pulled mother. I pulled mother when I was like getting these cards ready, and that was just what came out. Okay. Okay, so this is the Messiah, and the light attributes are serving humanity with humility, and the shadow attribute is exaggerated belief that you are the only means through which a cause can succeed. So when I think about this in terms of the mother message, I think about, okay, so like it's so tempting to kind of blame all your problems on your immediate ancestors. But I don't believe that we were ever meant to rely on our immediate family. I think that that's too incestuous, like spiritually incestuous. I believe that we're meant to have a larger web. Oh, and I'm getting chills about that. So I think that that is on the right track. We are meant to be rooted in a larger sense of purpose. We are meant to be rooted in a larger network or a larger community. And so if we only rely, or we only kind of like stay within our little family knot, we're going to be continued to be cursed by the same family curses over and over again. They're going to be harder to break because we don't have the benefit of that like medicine from other places. So and then what was the next one? Okay, so and then the next one that I drew was a wounded child. Um, the shadow, this is just what I was saying. The shadow attributes are blames all dysfunctional relationships on childhood wounds, resists moving on to forgiveness. And the light attributes are awakens compassion and desire to serve other wounded children, opens the learning path of forgiveness. So I also think this could be the learning path of forgiveness, right? It could be the learning path of forgiveness, allowing that fault line to become a knitted scar, right? And also the other thing is when we heal our scars, it's not that they disappear forever. It's not that they may ever like look as if they were never there, but that scar is part of our story, and that scar is part of who we are, just like a knot in a tree is part of who we are. And that is beautiful, and then it helps us to connect with others actually. And then okay, so cracked open. This card is talking about how surrender to the alchemy of life. This card is talking about how trauma can break us open to be larger than we were before. It can be a portal of growth and healing. Yeah, and then the next one that I drew was the ever unfolding rose, which it says cracked open. It's happening for you, not to you. And the next one. Okay, so seriously, I did not go through my decks and pick these out. These were all just kind of what came through when I was drawing. Break the chain, ancestral patterns, healing, rewriting the future. So whatever it is, like, let's try it, but like what we resist persists, and what we are able to face, we're able to kind of like compost, right? That's kind of another thing that I was getting out of this is the idea of composting. And actually, like, I feel like we did move some emotional energy in this reading, because when I first saw this card, I just wanted to cry. But now it doesn't feel that way to me. It actually feels like something's untangling here. All right, and then the last card in this series that I drew was Deep Replenishment, Retreat, Rest, Be Held. So that actually aligns with something that I've been guided to do recently, which is to kind of like really pull my energy back and take care of myself, because I did go through a thing that brought up stuff about self-worth and childhood wounds. And what I felt like I needed to do is really put my attention on myself for a while, just to really nurture myself, to notice how I am feeling, to mirror how I feel and validate my feelings. And I did a little ritual, which I will share with you in case you want to do it. So I took a little metal bowl and I decided to assign the symbolism of my sacral chakra to this bowl. This bowl is my sacral chakra. This is like the place where I hold all my creativity, and I want to contain it. And so I put like little things in the bowl. I put dice, I put coins, I put rocks. I tried to put things that weren't flammable in it, because then the next thing I did, I put some water in it, and then I put a candle in it to really like kind of nurture and support and draw light into my sacral chakra, to clear out anything that I didn't want to be in there, and to kind of shore up my sense of reserve, because I had felt very depleted. And I actually did feel, after about 24 hours, I did have like a big in my sacral chakra. And still kind of processing. And I do, it's probably good to like kind of open all of your, not have like one overactive, but I can recommend that if you're feeling depleted. Or, and also the other thing about working with the sacral chakra is that it does have to do with the womb. Oh, you can kind of see. Does that look like a womb? Kind of looks like a womb. Could look like a womb. I know right here, these lines at the bottom resonate with another card in this deck that has to do with the idea of the seed. So yeah, that could be like a womb. I'm gonna just see if there's a couple of other things. Okay, so Knight of Wands has to do with fire energy. And this could have to do with melting the ice. It could have to do with taking the initiative to embrace creativity, right? Oh, creativity as a way of healing. All right. So that was a question that I was asking when I was thinking about all of this stuff, is like, okay, so like if I'm sharing a message that resonates with somebody, what do we do to like rectify the situation? And one of the ways that you could do that is to actually really be with yourself and to really embrace a creative project or a creative process, because creativity is healing. It's like flowing the water of spirit through your nervous system and expressing yourself and sharing something that could be healing to others. It's healing to share healing with others, right? And it's kind of like a natural source of abundance, right? It's something that can't be taken from you. Oh, I forgot. I wanted to also talk a little bit about this. And this is cool because this is something that my mother gave me. Okay, look at this. There is the possum skull. And the possum, it's got a little wax on its head. Okay, so the possum is a marsupial in North America, and it is known for playing dead when threatened. And so in Native American cultures, some of them, I don't know, some of them, the possum represents staying safe through deception, right? The possum is lying to you that it's dead. Now, I can see that two ways, right? And it could be that somebody that develops this kind of ice queen pattern that we've talked about could be playing that inside to protect themselves from perceived threat. But it could also be a learned response when dealing with someone like this, to quote unquote gray rock or not give emotional response to somebody that's looking to provoke you, right? So if you have a parent that's constantly trying to get a rise out of you, to manipulate you into losing your temper so that you look like the bad one, so that you look like you're the problem, when really they're trying to provoke you. You might learn, like, at an early age to do what people call, like, gray rocking, which is just to not give an emotional response. And that is adaptive in context, but it can be maladaptive if you're trying to have a relationship with somebody because sharing emotions is just kind of part of, um, healthy communication. So if you feel like you can't share your emotions because you're not safe, well, hey, you might not be safe. But if you are safe to share emotions and then you don't, then that means that you are the one that's emotionally shut down. Sometimes when we're doing that, we're like not only shut down from other people, but we're also shut down from ourselves. And then we are disconnected from our own source of guidance, our own source of like being able to make sense of the world if we don't note those feelings, turn inwards, like give ourselves the benefit that's like warm flame. Allow that warm flame to cleanse and heal. So, okay, so here is the Hermit. And the Hermit, and this card especially, but in general also, is about that light that comes from within. Oh, and I see in here, I see, yeah, almost somebody like on an inner pilgrimage. The going inside. Oh, also here, let's go back to the forest. When you go inside, you may find all of these stories that you didn't know that you had, or all of these things that you thought were scary, but actually, when you take a look at them, have a different light. Also, the Hermit in other decks and in general, the archetype, it's like a person that's holding a lantern, right? So he's holding a lantern, which has to do with the stuff that we were talking about, light. Um, Holding that inner light, being able to illuminate the shadows, but not in an overhead way, not like in an oppressive way, but in a curious way, like exploring curiosity and opening up to whatever it is that can be found in there. And in going on that inner journey, might be able to heal the fault line to make it so that you don't have to walk on eggshells, so that you don't have to like live your life around trauma, right? You don't have to live your life around the walls that you've built up to compartmentalize this from that, to protect yourself from things that um, are now just being replicated in your own nervous system, not necessarily something that you have no control over. Because, like, when you're a child, you don't have the option to just pack up and leave if you come from a dysfunctional family system. But if you are an adult and you're dealing with a toxic person, you always do have the choice to get yourself out of that situation, to take care of yourself, to reset your nervous system, to heal yourself, and then kind of like set a new intention. You're going to make better choices in the future as you're able to, based on what you're able to see and what you know in real time. Yeah, that's the other thing, is that like when we have that frozen, when we have like walls inside, when we are compartmentalized, when we have, I guess, like, I don't know. In my mind's eye, I see like little compartments inside. When we have like everything little called compartmentalized inside, there's like a lack of communication inside. And so then our decisions become rote or pattern syncing. We replicate the patterns that we're familiar with in the past rather than being able to go inside and um, figure out what is more makes sense from an organic perspective, right? Okay, here's death. Death came out another time, and that reminds me of this card. So Thanatos. um okay, all right, yeah. And then when we're working with the ego, as I'm describing, that is actually a form of ego death. And you can see in this card there's that soul rising above. There's also the bird, which represents freedom. And I think it's a yellow bird, which also represents happiness. So the reason why people don't do this is because it's scary to do this. it is scary to go into the forest. It's scary to allow parts of yourself to die because you don't necessarily know what's on the other side of the fault line. And there can be conflict because when we stop being compartmentalized, we let the other parts of ourselves talk to each other. Then we may find that there are competing interests within each other. But what I like about this Five of Wands is there are competing interests, but then there's this one wand that comes up through the center. So this is speaking about how, through conflict, you can actually find unity. You can find balance. You can find unity. You can find that midpoint if you allow the conversation to occur. All right. The next one that came out was the King of Cups. This is speaking of an emotionally available man or masculine energy, right? So, the context of this message, this may also be encouraging replenishment to lean into the ability to. Oh, and then also you cannot receive this kind of love if you're frozen inside, right? It sounds trite, but if you have walls built up, if you are not letting in, then if somebody tries to give to you, you're going to perceive that as a threat, or you're going to reject it, or you're going to be overwhelmed. And so can let people like this model healthy love, and you can also do the inner work so that you can stand to be around people like this too. All right. This is a Seven of Wands. Speaking of defensiveness, it speaks to getting to a certain point in your journey and all right, yeah, maybe that was what I was just saying, is feeling overwhelmed, right? It's feeling overwhelmed through conflict. But the wand suit has to do with fire, and so in the context of what we're talking about here, the fire is melting the ice, which is a positive thing. Connecting with anger is what I get. Connecting with anger can be a wonderful way of kind of integrating whatever these compartmentalizations were. When you do that, it may cause initially it may cause some grief, right? It may cause, so as all this stuff rises up through your nervous system, kind of the last place that it occurs or can be felt or recognized is in the conscious mind, or it could be processed through dreams. Or you may realize that a lot of your negative thought patterns were stemming from whatever this piece of ice you had in your system was. And if you find yourself feeling, oh, that's whatever, that's a good sign, because it means that it's moving, right? It means that it's moving. Look, she's sitting on top of the rainbow. So and I say here is a new contract with reality. Having a new contract with reality. having better boundaries, or new different boundaries. And then also on either side of the pentacle, you can see those leaves. It's like new growth, new growth, new beginnings, new. And also the other thing is, can also be like a new contract with material reality too, because when you have all this stuff that is like really coming from a persistent lack of self-love, it can actually do a real number on your relationship with the material as well. It can make you feel like a constant source of lack. You feel like lack of love also can translate into a lack of money. So that is something that to look forward on the other side of deep replenishment. All right. So here's the Hanged Man, seeing things from another perspective, understanding your relationship between what it is that you did and your contract with society, whatever that is. And being in this state of surrender, if you look, you can see all this light coming out of his head upside down back into the earth. He's not touching the earth, but he's sending his light into the earth. I love this. Yeah, it's the tree position in yoga. Okay, so looking at things from another perspective, turning inwards, just kind of developing a deep acceptance around whatever it is, whatever this piece is that you're working on, maybe, or working on with me through hearing me talk about it. It's going to, it has the potential to wake you up, right? And has the potential to come to this place of enlightenment. But if we don't do that, we also have the option to distract ourselves, to turn away from opportunities. Oh, that's the other thing, is that when you're preoccupied with the past, or when you're preoccupied with your wounds, you may not be able to notice. Look at this. Okay, so on the ground right here are 3 cups, and I read that as like 3 things that have already happened, and then this 4th thing is in the air, and it's a hand offering to her, and she is not looking at it because she doesn't want to see the 3 cups on the ground. And so she's missing an opportunity that she could have and see there's a rainbow coming out of it, but she can't see it because her head is in the clouds and they're full of lightning bolts. So that also kind of ties into the Ace of Pentacles that I was talking about, where like doing this integrative work can open you up to new opportunities, but only if you can see them, if you are not distracted by all the stuff going on in your head. So, maybe that gives you some food for thought. I don't know. Like I've never done a reading like this before, but I feel like I could probably make it a thing. Let me know if you like it. Let me know what you think of it. Let me know if any of this resonated with you. And feel free to share if you have like other kind of patterns you'd like me to explore intuitively with cards in this way. And yeah, if you want to work on this with someone, I know someone who knows how to do internal family system stuff, NLP parts work, or hypnotherapy, or even working with cards if that sounds like your jam. So feel free to reach out if you want to see what that would look like to work together on that sort of thing. And I hope this video finds you well.